A civil war has raged in Sudan for 2 years. Both Sudan's army and the rebels are accused of horrendous human rights abuses and of creating the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Tens of thousands of people have been killed. There are widespread reports of rape and torture, and a hunger crisis is gripping the nation.
So everybody knows about Ukraine, everybody knows about Gaza. This place is unknown. It's kind of a very quiet famine.
People are surviving by eating rats and leaves. Over 1 million people have fled to the Nuba Mountains, a relatively peaceful corner of the country, only to find there is no food, no supplies, no help from the outside world. We've flown to South Sudan and are now driving towards the border. We're heading for the Nuba Mountains. It's been a virtually autonomous region for 20 years. We've just got into Sudan. We've actually crossed illegally because this state of South Kordofan is controlled by a rebel group called the SPLM-N. There is almost no infrastructure here. No electricity, no paved roads, and no running water. But the Nuba Mountains have largely escaped the worst of the civil war, not siding with either the Sudanese army or the RSF rebels. Right now, this is the safest place from war in Sudan. This is the church at Al-Hilu camp, where every day people arrive having fled the fighting. The war has forced over 12 million people from their homes across Sudan, and over 30 million, that's half the population, are in need of food and humanitarian aid. But next to none reaches here. Their only help is this tiny clinic, set up and run by Nafisa, a nurse who fled the war herself last year and is single-handedly trying to care for the entire camp of 5,000 people, with just a box of very basic first aid supplied by the local authorities. So where are we going?
جينا لمرأة عجوزة كبيرة في العمر فقدت فاقدة وظهر لها ورم بالأطراف. ماما أنت حاسة بقيتي كيف؟
وقعدنا رجع كان هنا دايرين نحوله قال ما عندنا تعويض قال ترجع باليهو رجعته.
And why are her legs swollen?
ما ده كله من أعراض في تغذية. بدلا من الدين ونزل كان في الأطراف.
There isn't much Nafisa can do for her. The family have no money to buy food.
شكلها يعني في ورم وعمل ضعيف يعني تاني تعيش يعني الوضع.
As we walk around, Nafisa spots some children who are severely malnourished.
ده ما هو انت وتكتو ده الاخوان كلهم الثلاثه البطن كبير ده سبب برضه من سوء تغذيه ده من اعراضه تلقى الكرش بيكون كبير والجسم بيكون نحيف ده يعني اقل احمال هيحصل الدرجه الثالثه بيكون فيه ورم بيكون فيه الجلد ده بيتسلخ بيكون زي حرق نار يعني لو ما لقوا عناية وما لقوا تغذية بطريقة كويسة. بابويا.
Their mother is out trying to scrape together some food, but supplies in the region are running low and will soon run out altogether. And when the rains come, the region will be cut off.
بالنسبة للاسم هنا ما وضع عام.
How worried are you that this is soon going to get worse again when the rainy season begins again?
أنا بالفعل بجد شايلة حمل لأنه الناس اللي هنا بالذات في الكيم ديل ما زرعوا وما عندهم يعني عندهم البسيط لو انتهى فيه بوش هسل.
2 areas of the Nuba Mountains have been officially declared in famine, and more are likely to follow. There are dozens of other camps offering shelter to those fleeing the war who have arrived over the past year. So Eunice, Krish, nice to meet you. Eunice is the chief of Uru, responsible for over 3,200 people. Are you getting any food aid here? What are people eating?
الجراد والفيران وكل الطيور الموجود في الغابة وكل الحيوانات الموجود في الغابة يعوز مساعدنا يمكن ده الحاجات اللي قاعدين ناكلها حسه كده.
We spot a boy who's caught and cooked a plate of rats. Here, that's a rare source of meat. How often are you eating rats? Do you have any other food? Does anyone bring food here? Every day, more people arrive at the camp. Medina and her baby arrived last night with just the clothes on their backs. How's the baby? Why did you leave where you were? What was happening there? Medina tells me her husband was a soldier in Sudan's army, but was killed before the baby was born, and she's desperate. How many more people like Medina are there?
طبعا الكتار ظروفهم زيادة وبيجوني زيادة أنا بستقبلهم ما في الطريقة إنه لابد إن نستقبلهم لأن أنا بقيت مسؤول منه عشان كده أنا بستلمه ناس جداد بالذات.
The SPLM-N rebels who control the Nuba Mountains claim the Sudanese government is blocking aid from reaching here. The Sudanese government denies that. There are very few aid agencies operating in this region. They fear being expelled from the whole of Sudan if they do more here. A day's drive from the camp is one of the 2 hospitals in the Nuba Mountains. Evidence of the crisis is everywhere.
So this is children's ward proper here. Here's the malnutrition ward. So it's this block here that we have overflows back there.
This whole section?
This whole wing is malnutrition, and then goes back into the back section.
Dr. Tom Katina has run the facility for 17 years and is one of only 3 permanent doctors serving the entire population of 4 million people. There are 3 times the number of malnutrition cases they'd normally get at this time of year. At the end of the rainy season, when the roads reopened and people could get to hospital, they were nearly overwhelmed.
I mean, we've never seen anywhere near that number for nutrition unit.
Your fear is that this year will be very bad?
Last year was terrible. I think we've as bad as last year. My take is I think a lot of people did not cultivate. Is that right, Steve? And they were using, I think people that had seed from the previous year, instead of using that seed to plant, they were desperate, so they ate the seed. If the North is functioning, if there's no civil war, they're all cultivating. They produce quite a bit of food in Sudan. Now, with fighting in the North, they're not cultivating. All the supply routes are cut off. If it's red, it's severe acute malnutrition. Yellow is moderate acute malnutrition. Green is you're okay. 6-month-old babies, somewhere like 8-9 kilos.
Yeah.
It's because more than a year and a half, 5 kilos, so way underweight.
The hospital is also running out of the emergency high-calorie food they give to starving children. They're having to ration it until they get new supplies, which aren't due for months. This is very much an unreported world, an unreported war, and a country in which more and more people are facing famine. Given how long you've been here, what would you say about the level of need?
I've been here now, it'll be 17 years soon. This is by far the worst it's been, and all the time I've been here. Even through, we had terrible civil war here for 5-6 years, worse than that time then in terms of food insecurity. We've got tremendous needs here, and we don't have big organizations coming to help. I mean, it's neglected. So everybody knows about Ukraine, everybody knows about Gaza, everybody knows about these other areas that are in conflict. This place is unknown. It's kind of a very quiet famine.
We've come back with Nafisa to see the children we met earlier in the week. We've brought with us some food, currently available in the local market, but too expensive for people in the camp to afford.
هي بس بأطفالها وما عندها استطاعة عشان تقدر تربي عيالها، هي برا عشان كده كل الأسرة الأطفال الصغار دي قاموا خششوا في سوء تغذية. احنا نمشي ونصل عليهم.
The kid's mum, Zara, spends all day trying to get casual work. She never earns more than $2 a day, which isn't enough to feed 6 children.
بإنه السبب اللي خلاكي تيجي هنا شنو؟ ليه خليتها حبيلة؟
عرفي حبيلة.
فحبيلة كده أثناء الهرب كده أنت كنت وين؟ كنت في بيتك برا البيت؟
أنا في مرقت خلاص بعد ما الحرب خشة والجماعة بقوا يداوسوا طلعنا.
شفت أنت وقت جارية شفت ناس مثلا معوقين قدامك، ناس ميتين؟
شفنا ناس قتلوهم قدامنا متعوقين جرينا.
الحاصل شنو هم معلوم دمهم كيف ضربهم كده في الزمن واحد؟
الجماعة دول طلعوا في الجبل يلا قام نزلهم يلا قام ضربهم.
وساعدوا من قبيلة معينة اللي بس قالوا نوبة.
قال لهم بس احنا جيشنا النوبة بس. من النوبة دول طوال قام ضربهم.
ضربوا كم نفر كده يعني انت شفتوا؟
7 نفر.
وكتروا انتوا الأوين ديل عملوا لكم شنو؟
الأوين دول قال لنا بس انتوا خارجوا من هنا طبعا قاعد في الهند رغم ان احنا
All the women in this camp have gone through unbelievable trauma. They have seen their men shot dead in front of them and have been told by RSF soldiers that if they cry or if they make any noise, they'll be shot dead too. But that kind of horror is something that they don't even have the time to try and process. Because right now, they're just trying to stay alive. They're trying to survive. Later that afternoon, I visit Nafisa in the home she's created here since arriving a year ago from El Obeid, a town fiercely fought over during the war. Hi. Before the war, all her children had big dreams. The older ones were at university. Now it's a daily struggle just finding food. Their aspirations are shattered. And what's this? Because of bombing? Yeah. Nafisa knows the current peace in the Nuba Mountains could end any moment. So how much of a shock was it to go from that life to this one?
قاعد استغرب هسه ده بقتناته بتوضع يعني في البداية والأقارب والثعابين يعني المحل ده كان كعب شديد وكجينا طبيعي الصباح تقوم تلقى ثعبان تحت المشمع تلقى عقرب تخرج جوا تلقى ثعبان.
We've been watching you going around measuring other people for malnutrition, but you look pretty thin yourself. I mean, how are you and your family?
أنا بجيت حاسة بالنسبة لصحتي حاسة صلحت أحسن من أول. يعني كنت خاشة طازة بصرف كل بيت برضه أمي خشت وعندي بنتي ذاتها بس خشت برضه نفس اسمه لأنه أكل كان ما في.
I'm sorry, are you okay?
لكن معلش ها؟
لا ما في حاجة.
It must have been very frightening.
هاي تأثرت شديد يعني عمري ما حصل. ظروف الرمر ما حصل.
You have saved your family and so many people in this camp. That's an incredible achievement.
بكون متأسف ده من يجيني مريض وما يكون عندي دواء يلا بكون متأسف شديد يعني يكون يجيك زول عيان ويكون ما في كرتونة أفتش كرتونة ألقى حاجة مفترض أسقف أبوي يكون ما في قال نكون متأسف شديد
It's clear Nafisa really cares about the people here. She also tells me she's been counselling many women who were raped. Have you come across many of these stories and accounts?
أي الدور اللي فاتوا كديل جو وديتهم عملوا معاهم لقاء ما استهدفوا كل الأحياء يعني أحياء المعينة اللي قاعدين فيه نوبة وكجو استهدفوهم وساقوهم معاهم يعني ساقوا البنات في بنات كتار ساقوهم فاتوا تموهم شهر تم شهرين يعني شيء مرتب لو ما مرتب ما ساقوا البنات ديل أصلا جو كده يعني الأوين ما ساقوهم ساقوا البنات أكتر منهم.
Nafisa's account matches what other women have told us, that the RSF deliberately targets Nuba women. They've been accused of using rape as a weapon of war, something they deny, but it is an act of genocide in international law, if proven. The war has also put thousands of children at risk of trafficking, slavery, and sexual abuse. There are now 17 million children out of school in Sudan. But there is one place where a small number are offered sanctuary. Our Father's Cleft is a church-funded boarding school and children's home. It is inundated with requests to take children in. So tell me, where exactly are we going now?
We are going to Debi.
And that's a camp?
Yeah, that is area camp.
Ezekiel Ayub is the school's director and is heading to one of the biggest camps where he's told there are lots of vulnerable and hungry children. Because you have so few places, how do you decide who to choose?
I actually look for the most vulnerable.
It isn't long before Ezekiel is surrounded by people desperate for help.
This woman actually has 6 kids, but the 3 kids that she brought with don't have any parents.
How did you end up with these 3 kids?
ما مرقنا من البيوت أثناء إطلاق النار الثقيلة دي برضه هناك بيمشي بلقى هجوم محل يجري اتجاه براو والعيال ده خلوهم معي وهين جرن البيت والبيت ما قريب جرن المسافة عشان يجيب حاجة الصباح بدري يجيب راجل وأنا قاعد معاهم ومين برقوا مشوا هناك تاني ما جوني.
You don't know whether they're alive or not?
ما عارفين لكن قاعدين نتابع أخبار ما في.
So Ezekiel, are these the kinds of children who you would take?
Yeah, definitely. These are the type of the children, especially the 3 who don't have any parent here.
Yeah.
These are the ones that I'm targeting actually.
Ezekiel agrees to take a brother and sister from another woman who's been looking after 6 children who aren't hers. For tiny, frightened Shamia, it's just too much. She has no idea what's happening to her. It's a long drive back to the school. In one dizzying morning, their whole lives have changed again. They just have to trust Ezekiel and his team will look after them. A few days later, we go to the school to see how the kids are doing. The classrooms are full, and the new arrivals from the camp are in their first lesson, including Shamia. Next door, 13-year-old Ahmed is already learning some English. It's quite amazing to see Ahmed standing up there so quickly at the front of the class doing the alphabet. It's very heartwarming to see how he seems to be settling in. The school caters to students between 5 and 20 years of age, many of whom have physical and psychological scars from years of war. 2 of the students are former child soldiers who escaped the war in Darfur. Ezekiel himself lived through years of fighting. He knows how hard it is for the kids to get used to their new surroundings.
We try with our teachers to be not only teachers, but rather mothers as well, and dads to the kids.
For all the kids you're not able to help, what is the real risk to them now?
Their future is actually very difficult because they will end up, getting starved because of no food, and others may also fall into slavery.
So the choice for those children can be starvation or slavery.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a horrific choice. That's no choice.
There is no choice.
The school has over 430 pupils who are fed 3 times a day, unheard of in the camps, and are now safe from being trafficked. This is just a tiny number of the hundreds of thousands of children who need help. Ahmed is beginning to see a future for himself.
كان كده بس في أنا صغير ده كان تاب
How do you feel now being here?
مرتاح شاعر بأي حاجة بكون كويس ما كاب لأنه مرتاح جد قاعد في المدرسة أكل نشرب وقاعد مرتاح.
Inside the school walls, the children are in many ways shielded from the reality outside, where the famine is predicted to get worse. It's the last day of my trip, and I want to check in with Nafisa. She's once again visiting the most vulnerable people in her camp.
كيف صباح الخير؟ كيف أصبحت؟ ما معك زر في البيت ده؟ السبب اللي خلاه يخش في الحالة ده لأنه ما عنده زول معاه. لا عنده جنى، لا عنده زوج، لا عنده زول بعينه. ده السبب اللي خلاه. وزيد الأكل ما في. الله عامل له دير عناية. يعني هو شكله كده دير عناية خاص يهتم به، يعني هو ما عيان لكن بس فاقد.
Nafisa will do what she can to help, but she can't save everyone. A few meters away, there's an empty tent where another elderly man starved to death just a few days ago. The situation here is really shocking. There are thousands of people who've arrived here with just the clothes on their backs. There is absolutely no help coming in at all, no food aid at all. People are really desperate and on their own. With Western powers like the US and the UK cutting aid budgets, the situation in Sudan seems more bleak than ever. From what I've seen in Nuba, there is no international will to help and no pressure on the Sudanese government to act. People here are suffering and the world is looking the other way.
أن يسوعنا هو الرب مجدا لك يا يسوعنا كل ركبة حتسجد لك كل لسان يعترف أن يسوعنا هو الرب مجدا لك يا يسوعنا كل ركبة حتسجد لك كل لسان يعترف